Father God, we thank you for your faithfulness. We thank you for your mercies. And we just ask, Lord, tonight again for your wisdom in every decision that is made. We just give you all the praise and the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. In order to start the meeting, Ms. Flock, would you call the roll call?
Mr. Howell?
Present.
Mr. Winger?
Present.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Ohl?
Here.
Mayor Kramer?
And I am here. The preliminary matters of adopting an agenda. Does staff, looks like you guys have a change here? Or?
Yes, sir. We would like to add on item 310, which is an airport lease agreement for Design Homes of Florida Company, the second addendum to the lease agreement and updated attachment B, and you do have a copy in front of you
Okay.
on the consent agenda.
Is there any members of the council that would like to make any changes?
Move for approval as amended.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is passed. Proclamations. Vero Beach Yacht Club Day. You know, this is absolutely a great proclamation, and if I could have you all come up to the podium, I greatly appreciate it.
This is like
90 years, right?
90 years.
Incredible. I'll go ahead and I'll read the proclamation, then I will hand it over to you, and we'll go from there. The proclamation states that the Vero Beach Yacht Club was created as a private club in 1926 with the original charter outlining an intention to work with the city and build and maintain dockage in order to bring visitors to Vero Beach. And in 1938, the Vero Beach Yacht Club built their first dock and managed it, and also were responsible for maintaining the city marina up to the early 70s. And their current building was built in the early 60s and was virtually destroyed along with their docks in the 2004 hurricanes. But with the dedication of their members, in a little over 4 months, the club was up and operational again. The club in the late 60s and 70s was composed of very young people, mainly young men in their early 20s, and has grown over the years with boating enthusiasts to the current total of 530 members, comprised of both couples and singles of varying age groups. Now, therefore, the City Council of Vero Beach does hereby proclaim January 14th, 2016 as Vero Beach Yacht Club Day and invites the community to join in with their 90th anniversary. Peter?
All right. Don't worry, it's only me going to make a speech. So Mayor Kramer and City Council members, it's a great honor for the Vero Beach Yacht Club to be recognized by the City of Vero Beach on the occasion of our 90th anniversary. So on behalf of the bridge and for all our members, we thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our bridge. Vice Commodore is Barbara Epstein. And the Rear Commodore is Ray Neville. The Treasurer is Tom Pescio. And the Secretary is Jim Miskell. As the Mayor has already stated, the City and the Vero Beach Yacht Club have had a long and very positive relationship, truly starting in 1926. As an example, Waldo Sexton was our very first Rear Commodore. And he also donated the land upon which the club sits to this day. He and the other founding members, along with the Vero Beach City Fathers, had as a goal and worked tirelessly at it to promote tourism and trade for the city and the area. The club even managed, as you heard already, the club has even managed the docks and the marina for the city for many years, up until, as you said, the 70s. Today, Vero Beach Yacht Club has maintained a mutually beneficial relationship with the city. And believe me, we intend to keep it that way. And not just with our taxes. We also participate in a number of community organizations, community events, and we support many local charities. Just as the city of Vero Beach has turned into a growing, vibrant city, our Vero Beach Yacht Club has evolved into a lively, fun-filled social environment with a unique and distinctive nautical atmosphere. Again, we thank the mayor and the council for this special honor, and we would like to extend an invitation to you to call us and arrange a tour. Also, if you're interested, I think we have our anniversary issue newsletters somewhere out back on your way out.
We'll get back there.
To take on the way out. Don't worry about it. Relax.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Get a picture.
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks very much. Good to see you. Congratulations. Great. How you doing? Good to see you. Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much. All right.
Peter? Hey. Let me get that and get this out of the way. We'll scrunch up. Is that an appropriate term?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Great. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so
Good to see you.
much.
Good to see you.
Next, we have a Through with the Chew, and I think, Mr. Winger, you have that one.
Yes, with Leslie Spurlock and the SWAT members, otherwise called Students Working Against Tobacco, come up. And I get to read this. This is rather long, and the reason is that we have one student. I never smoked because I grew up on a dairy farm, and we were afraid we burned the barn down. At my age, I can still read this, and it's really important. Whereas the tobacco industry entices young people and non-traditional users with new smokeless products with appealing flavors, and whereas while cigarette use among Florida youth reached an all-time low in 2014, smokeless tobacco has fluctuated, but it has not decreased compared to a decade ago. And whereas 5.4% of high school students and 1.8% of middle school students in Beaver County use smokeless tobacco, and whereas while the adolescent brain is still developing, nicotine use of any kind can disrupt the formation of the brain circuits that control attention, learning, and susceptibility to addiction. And adolescents are more easily addicted to nicotine than adults are. And whereas compared to cigarettes, smokeless tobacco products like chew and dip can contain more nicotine. And whereas one adolescent starts using one tobacco product, they're more likely to experiment with others and use multiple tobacco products like cigars, cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, pipes, and so on. Whereas smokeless tobacco, including chew, dip, and snuff, contains 28 cancer-causing chemicals, including a radioactive element called plutonium-210, arsenic, and lead. And whereas smokeless tobacco users have an 81% higher risk of oral cancer and a 60% risk of pancreatic and esophageal cancer, as well as other health issues such as mouth sores, gum recession, tooth decay, discoloration of teeth, gingivitis, which can lead to bone and tooth loss. And whereas the tobacco industry systematically uses techniques to increase tobacco use among youth, including candy-flavored products, marketing with youth resident themes such as rebellion, glamour, celebrity endorsements, sport, music sponsorships. And whereas many new smokeless products are cheaper than cigarettes and traditional smokeless tobacco, making them more appealing and accessible to youth. And whereas young people generally tend to believe that flavored smokeless tobacco products are less harmful than non-flavored versions. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby recognize the week of February 14th to 20th, 2016 as Through with the Chew Week, and in doing so, urges citizens to make publicly known the dangers of smokeless tobacco use and urge spit tobacco users to demonstrate to themselves, their friends, and their families they can quit chewing tobacco. What would you like to say? What's left?
That was excellent. Good read. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Kramer and council members. We certainly appreciate every time we're able to come up here and educate not only you all, but the public, too, that's watching. As it states, the tobacco use with cigarettes has gone down, but for decades now, we really haven't seen a decrease in smokeless tobacco. And more and more young people are using it and hiding it because it's very easy to hide using it. When they are really addicted to other products, they'll use both sometimes. But tonight I'd also like to introduce Micah Van Lis. And Micah is a student working against tobacco at Vero Beach High School. And she's going to tell you a little bit about how you can identify if you have something in your mouth that indicates that you might have oral cancer.
I'd like to start off with just like a few kind of facts about smokeless tobacco. No form of smokeless tobacco is a safe substitute for cigarettes. Still, tobacco companies often market these products as alternatives to smoking in places where smoking isn't allowed. Approximately 48,000 people a year are diagnosed with some form of oral cancer. Cigarette, cigar, or pipe smokers are 6 times more likely than non-smokers to develop oral cancers. Users of dip, snuff, or chewing tobacco products are 50 times more likely to develop cancers of the cheeks, gums, or linings of the lip. The development of velvety white or red speckled patches in the mouth are called leukoplakia, which I actually have a picture of.
Gross.
Pretty rough. This is basically an unexplained numbness, loss of feeling, pain, or tenderness in any area of the face, mouth, or neck. It's a soreness or feeling that is caught in the back of the throat, and it also causes difficulty chewing, swallowing, speaking, or moving of the jaw or tongue. And I'd like to add that with future statistics, that was a word, okay, that if we convince 4 out of every 10 people to stop using tobacco products, we can save on average 3.2 million people. So it's a small statistic for you.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Leslie, come forward and get it, and do you want your picture and so on?
Good job.
Oh, okay.
That's great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've got 3 presentations under public comment. The first one will be the recommendation from the Recreation and Marine Commission.
Good evening. I'm Dick Yum, Chairman of the Recreation Commission, and with me is Tom Giuliano, Chairman of the Vero Beach Marine Commission. And we've already provided you with copies of our summary and recommendation. So rather than reading through all of it, I'll just highlight a couple of things. Number one, we had 3 public workshops, and we probably had like 300 people in total in attendance at those workshops. And from that, they generated approximately 30 suggestions for the use of the power plant land, the water treatment land, and the post office annex land. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. The common theme was, it seems to be, the people that spoke wanted mixed use of the land, not one big dominant project, to do it. And there were a couple of interesting suggestions, one being to provide an exhibition area for findings of the Vero Man project. I don't think we really have anywhere in the city to exhibit what has been found. So I thought that was a very good suggestion. The Other suggestions came up with the use of the land. Everybody wants a waterfront restaurant, which can be worked out, in doing it. On the development of the waterfront with, I'll let Tom talk more about the expansion of the marina, possibly using, the waterfront for marina land. And probably the other big suggestion was as a passive. We got one, which as you can see is an addition to this, which is the 30th, of putting in a garden. So maybe we can coordinate with the garden club or something like that to come in and use some of the land to give us an active garden, for a passive standpoint of it. Our recommendation is to proceed the next step, to utilize all these suggestions and come up with a design on how to use the land. And from what we were able to determine, we would suggest considering the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, as the planning source for this. And with that, we'll let Tom speak, then we'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Dick. I don't have a lot to add to that. Dick's done a nice job. We did have 3 public workshops. 2 were very well attended, and that's how we came up with so many of these ideas. Dick and I did visit the Regional Planning Council back in December. Quite impressed. They came up here on February 9th, and we had a joint commission meeting here in the City Council chambers, made a presentation. Again, they've done a nice job. A couple of the other ideas, which I was quite excited about, is, as you know, the marina is pretty chock-a-block right now that the recession's sort of over. I don't know about the stock market, but the recession for boating is. And we can use this space. We actually had a presentation by a kayak paddleboard company where they've joined forces with all the companies in town, and they're prepared to begin something right now as an income-producing opportunity for the city. We need space for dry storage. We're pretty much out of that at the city marina. There are opportunities to rent kayaks, to rent various kinds of other boats there as well, which we really can't do, bait shops. So there's so many things that we could take on as a waterfront community that we just don't have an opportunity to do right now. I'll turn it back to you, Dick, at this point, unless there's any questions from the council.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah, Mr. I certainly do. You said that Treasure Coast Regional Planning made a presentation. Did anyone else, did you talk to any other source or consultant and possibly?
No.
No. Was any cost estimate provided for doing this type of services or schedule?
Go ahead.
I was present for a lot of the discussion with the Regional Planning Council. I did not go down there, but I did listen to their presentation. There is no dollar amount that has been given. They did a total city project down in Palm Beach County, and it was like $275,000, I believe. But that was 5 square miles and included the entire city. The work that they did for the Cultural Arts Council was considerably less than that. I don't know what the number was, but you know that they were not going to spend it. The thing about using the Regional Planning Council, they cannot, because they're a public entity, they cannot get into a bid and will not respond to RFPs. We either take one option or the other is the only way they can go because they are a public entity. I think the easiest thing from the perspective of where I was coming from, as well as I believe the committee chairman, was that we are members of the Regional Planning Council. And since they had done work in Vero Beach with the Cultural Arts Council, doing basically the same thing that we would perceive that would happen in this project, that it would be pretty simple to make that happen.
Well, my objection is, first of all, we have not seen the results of the cultural arts. That is still to be presented and to be evaluated by the community. This is riverfront property. This is the last bit of riverfront property that this community has. This is an incredible opportunity for us to do something really, really special. And I think we need to pull in look at all the resources available to help us come up with the best idea. I am not convinced that the Treasure Coast Regional Plan is that. And I certainly think that we need to go out and entertain presentations from other sources. Like I said, we've got time. This is important. This is critical. Let's be sure that we've looked at all the options.
Let me add to one of the suggestions of the Regional Planning Council is they're familiar with this local area. And the advantages of they're familiar with working with the DOT, which is going to be very important over there, as far as the traffic coordination with the bridge and everything like that. The other advantage that we saw was their knowledge of getting grants in this area, and which would subsidize even their cost of doing things. So, there are advantages. Everybody has advantages, which you have to weigh. I'm not disagreeing with what you say, but we really weren't tasked with going out and finding other people.
No, but I guess my question is, how do you come and recommend that when you haven't looked at what the other alternatives are? And I mean, it may be fine, but I think this is such an economic importance and value to this community that we really have to look at other things. And we may end up coming back here. I really just think that we need to look at other options.
If you put out an RFP and entertain private, the Regional Planning Council will not come back. That's really the critical part. This is the juncture, or whenever you make that
And what
decision.
are they afraid of? Do we believe that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning has, the best best information on economic development, on other, on every resource?
It's the same as Go Line. If you go out and you get a price for another bus, Go Line will not come back in because they are a public entity. And that's the only thing. And I agree. I mean, if we want to do an RFP, we can do that, and do it in the private sector. But once we take that route, that's the route we take.
Mr. Mayor, if I might comment.
Sure.
I believe the next step, which is not the final step on the Cultural Arts Village, is tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. So more will develop there. I have worked with the Cultural Council, and I've been following it. I personally think it's the best approach, and I support the Commission's recommendation. I would suggest that the next step would be to have the regional people come and make a presentation here in the near future. I agree there's no particular hurry. But, they're equipped to deal with things like traffic. I mean, you think about it, if you do something with those sites, I mean, you have two major roads going hither, thither, and yon. How do people get in and get out?
We have a very sophisticated MPS.
Well, wait a minute, Mrs. Turner.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you weren't finished.
Let me finish. I think they are well equipped to do it, but I think instead of just going out for an RFP, I would like to have them come forward and talk to the council as a suggestion. You may have the floor, Ms. Turner.
I would just say there certainly are mixed consulting firms that have expertise in these all different areas of dealing with development and traffic and roads and things like that, and looking at the economic impact to the city and to the beauty and everything else. I just think that we need to go out and check out these other firms and talk, find out, who's there, what's available before we make this kind of a decision.
We obviously have had good firms. I mean, we've done comprehensive plans, so there are those firms on the market.
Yeah.
But now it's my understanding Cultural Arts Council will be coming and making a presentation in March to the City Council on their proposal,
Yes. Right.
so that at least you'll be able to see a product that has been resulted. But and I agree. I don't think any decision has to be made tonight.
No, and yet I think the projects are very different to it. I think the cultural is a revitalization of a neighborhood area. Now we're looking at kind of a grassroots area that's a blank slate that will be a blank slate at some
Mr.
point
Old?
for us.
Yeah, I'm our representative on the Regional Planning Council, and I have a lot of confidence in them. And I'm kind of stuck between this. I don't know them well enough to be able to say, hey, this kind of project, waterfront, is right up your alley, and you're the obvious choice for this. I don't know them well enough to be able to say that. I'd like to know more about what they've done in the past and things like that. This is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing for us, and we've really got to be careful with it. And we just have to be careful going forward, and that's what I think we ought to be doing.
We do need to be careful with this, and it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But I have a question, gentlemen. You had 300 people show up and make suggestions. We say once-in-a-lifetime. I think that, personally, I believe that applies to the waterfront properties. And we also are considering the annex piece of property, and I'm sure that was part of this communication. Has anybody suggested to you that we sell that annex piece of property to pay down the debts that we have on Dodgertown?
Not that I.
Dick, let me answer that question. I had actually tasked that with the Indian River Chamber of Commerce to sell the piece of annex land to get that money so that we could kind of help with the other projects. Believe it or not, the developers and a lot of the people that were involved in that area wanted to package that all up. And so that it went by the wayside. And instead of having that piece of annex property sell by itself in order to help the city, they wanted that as part of the overall.
So they wanted all three properties, or at least two?
All of them in the same visiting process.
Okay. Well, and thank you for that. It occurred to me that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And that annex piece of property, in my mind, is also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pay down our debt. And so I'm glad to know that piece of information. But
it may be crucial for the access to the other ones, and it's unknown right now. But it's a complicated threesome there and a complicated access to it, so it may be very crucial to.
And as you said, I believe you're right to approach this cautiously and take our time.
Well, there had been discussion on the moving the substation from the power plant to that property. This goes back, 5-6 years ago, I think. So right now, I think it's, as you go into the design stage, keeping your options open, is definitely to your advantage. And as you know, it's on the Recreation Commission, I like keeping land the way it is. I don't like selling land. And so you may want to consider leasing the land even, versus selling as an option. You give a 25-year lease, but you hold the rights to that land, which are more valuable each year going forward.
And not at $1 a year.
No question about that. That's before my time.
Right. We're up to 25 a year.
Are we up there on that?
Well, gentlemen, I greatly appreciate what you guys have done.
A couple of things. I think we should have a plan as to when we're going to deal with this. I mean, the second meeting in March, in April, or whenever. In other words, it's going to have to be dealt with.
Well, one of the points I was going to make is that we started this process, and you guys have it here in your letter on May 12th of 2015. We started this 9 months ago. And I can't believe it's been 9 months ago since we started this. But, Dick, you brought up the idea of having the Treasure Coast Planning Council come back. I think that's the best thing to do. We've got some concerns about costs and alternatives. I mean, we have a period that we can explore those options and explore other costs and other options.
I agree with you. Have them come back and talk to us without the pressure of making a decision at that particular point in time, I think would be the proper course.
And I would ask this time, too, that city manager help develop a list of other possible potential companies that could be helpful in this process.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, also, Mr. Howell brought up the Dodgertown, and we have, it's actually very, very well done by the Eric Menger and his people and the Airport Commission in the reports, the annual reports of the various committees, and it is actually quite revealing about the challenges that will face us ahead. I mean, in the airport, and then you take in the old Dodgertown golf course and some of the associated property, And then if you think about Dodgertown, I mean, you're talking well over 25% of the city. And you know, one of the things about it is we've talked about, okay, the Dodgertown property was appraised for $3.5 million, and it's been called surplus, and that's great, and it is surplus, and we're going to have to deal with it. It costs $10 million, we owe $6 million roughly, and we pay $600,000 debt, and we can't afford to pay the debt. So we need to do something with it. But I would submit to you, too, that whole corridor, whether it's Aviation or 43rd or the Dodgertown, needs some thought into the future. The mobile home park, light industry. I mean, we're now starting to cross over. There's a joint commission meeting talking about solar on the airport grounds. And Mr. Old has recently brought up, you know, and there was an excellent report done by Mr. McGarry, at least the start of a report on the city vision plan, because that has to go into our comp plan. I think we're kind of this property on the waterfront may be the most important, but I think we're kind of at taking the airport situation. I think we're at another point there that we should give it some longer term consideration. In other words, just not sell the 36 acres or whatever there is for the lowest property. What's the highest and best, and how does it fit with the corridor in front of the airport? And so it may be that we'll have more than one challenge for whomever does this. I think we should, frankly.
Jim?
Just as a point of information, we're interviewing real estate agents to help us market that property. We did an RFP for that, received the bids in, had a meeting, and we will be scheduling hopefully interviews in less than 2 weeks.
Well, I understand that, but I don't feel any differently about it than I do the diesel plant. I mean, we have 3 bids. They appeared on my desk today. I haven't seen them. I don't know what they say. You had a review committee. And what I've thought about that is it should be the highest and best use, not the most amount of money for the future of the town. And I think the same thing is true. I don't think it changes anything. Okay, you interview, you choose somebody, but I think we, you know, if someone comes forward and they're going to put up gas stations and so on and car repair places on that 36 acres. I mean, it's the entry to our town when you go to Dodgertown, and I think it needs some more consideration than just the best price. That's my opinion. I'll shut up.
I think you can go even further than that. I mean, this particular building here, we only use half of it, and I think there's quite a bit of the city property that we could stop and think about how to consolidate, how to use what we need to use and what we don't, what we could rent out and what we not. So I think an overall plan for our property would be good, including that area out there. Yeah.
But when you start putting restrictions on the property, the value goes down, just as long as we all understand the concept.
Well, I think as long as you say to your brokers that we're not necessarily going to sell it for the highest price, life goes on, and that's how I feel about it.
But for the matter at hand with the recommendation, is it the consensus of the council that we would have the Regional Planning Council come back, do a presentation, and then we would get a list of alternatives, costs, and a list of other projects that they've worked on? Is that
sounds good?
Fine.
Okay.
We will schedule that, try to get them as soon as possible to a council meeting.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Next, we will have Vero Beach Air Show.
Good evening. My name is David Walker. I'm a board member with the Vero Beach Air Show. We are 129 days away from the Blue Angels gracing our skies here in Vero Beach once again. That being said, the board has been working well over a year now planning. We've got a number of other performers coming. One of the stipulations that the Blue Angels did place upon our community was that they wanted to get out amongst our community. That being said, historically they've always visited high schools, hospitals. Now they are really much more interested in getting out amongst our community and meeting our community and spending time with them. So we were tasked with creating an event where we could do that. So we are coming before the council tonight to advise that we will be hosting an event at Riverside Park on Saturday, June 25th We're going to do it in conjunction with the Buggy Bunch, who has a lot of experience doing food truck frenzies under the oaks. We're trying to put the best foot forward for Vero Beach. And part of that event will be live entertainment. We'll introduce the Blue Angels. They'll go out and spend time amongst the community, our other performers that will be coming. But in that event, we also would like the permission from the city to be able to sell beer and wine, as well as at the air show. So just wanted to kind of come before you all, answer any questions we can, as we've gone through this process to permit the event and make sure that we cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's.
Wonderful. I don't think we have too much of a problem with that, do we?
No, sir, we don't. We usually grant permission, and if the city council agrees with the request for alcohol to be served, we'll process the paperwork and proceed on. You just have to give them the blessing.
And any questions, though?
I just say, hey, really thrilled about getting the Blue Angels back in Vero Beach, and you've partnered up with a very good group, experienced and successful, to help bring off this event, David.
Thank you very much. We're trying to make sure we bring in the right partners along the way. Any support you guys can ever lend, much appreciated as well. So feel free to reach out to us. We're just excited to have them back in the community. And the event in 2014, I think we brought in over 50,000 guests to the airport. The hotels, the restaurants, the entire city and county just benefited greatly. We are just both honored, but then more importantly, feeling burdened with the responsibility. But we thank you guys very much for allowing us to continue to try to put Vero Beach out there as a wonderful place for those performers to visit, but more importantly, all those others that come up from all around Florida and around the world, actually. But yeah, thank you very much.
Well, as the time approaches and you guys get a little more of your details, I mean, I definitely want you to come back, and maybe we'll have to do a proclamation for Blue Angels Days, and get that out there.
Thank you.
Love to have you come back and keep us abreast of what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, if you'll take a vote to allow alcohol sales on the June 25th event honoring the Blue Angels.
Okay, need a motion?
I so move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Manager, do we also need that for the actual air show itself, which is Saturday the 25th and the 26th at the airport?
It's actually already authorized in your license agreement.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you. Mr. Dwayne DeFries. Doctor, my gosh.
Good evening, Mayor Kramer, council members. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. It's an honor to be here, and also I'd be remiss not to thank you. I mean, you invested in the Indian River Lagoon Council, in the Indian River Lagoon, and so I'm here to give you a brief update. I brought a PowerPoint. It's got quite a lot of detail. Don't worry, I did that for the written record. I want to hit the high points and leave some time for questions. So, Ms. Falk, are you going to advance me on this? While we're waiting, we have made tremendous progress with both the Indian River Lagoon Council and the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. I think a lot of people assume that when the council was formed a year ago, next week actually, that somehow that National Estuary Program just immediately showed up in our hands. It was a dramatic 90-day run. Our goal when I came on board in October was to start January 1 with a National Estuary Program designation, move from St. John's River Water Management District to the council. They were taking bets on us in Atlanta Regional that we wouldn't make it, and we were a week late. And so we are now formally the National Estuary Program at the IRL Council. As you probably have been hearing, let me go back. National Estuary Programs are really about partnerships. They're non-regulatory. They are based on diverse stakeholder interests. They're collaborative, they're consensus building, and most importantly, they're community-based. And so a year ago, when the IRL Council first proposed this reorganization, it was really about bringing the voice back to the local community. And there's some 50 local communities who exist along the lagoon, and so that's our intent, and that's my personal goal. I was here in the very beginning. I actually wrote the technical document for then Governor Martinez that brought that NEP designation. So kind of odd for me at this mature stage in my career to all of a sudden being, on the point of the reorganization. We'll be up in Washington, D.C. actually next week talking about the next steps, but we're moving very quickly forward to meet the goals of the NEP. And it's basically, how do we get back to a healthy ecosystem? And I'm sad to say is the system is under some stress right now. We are seeing a rolling brown tide once again from southern Mosquito Lagoon. It's almost down to Melbourne. And, of course, down south with the discharges from Lake Okeechobee, we've got catastrophic water impacts both east through the St. Lucie River and west through the Caloosahatchee. And so we have a system that is under a lot of stress right now, which puts a lot of stress on me. I am feeling the pressure of this job because, we need to make some decisions, move forward, and do everything we can to get a healthy ecosystem, not just for our communities and not just for the environment, but for our economy as well. So this reorganization really started a year ago, and it started with local governments coming together. And I'm proud to say that our coalition is strong. We are in the process now of taking that next step with the National Estuary Program, which will build not just the staff that I have, but transfer assets from Water Management District, which I'm happy to say are almost all done. So 13 contracts at the Water Management District are now with us. So we have 13 projects underway, about half are restoration projects, all local government or state agencies, about half are education, one is research. That is our work plan for this year. And on March 18th, we will be actually looking at our budget and our work plan, moving from that transition phase from where we were kind of thinking about where we wanted to be to actually looking at a more performance-based budget. And so staff will be bringing recommendations to the council on how do we amend that budget. Those amendments will have to go to the EPA, and then we will go into next year with a very clear path, we hope, on what happens next. Now, some of the things that are likely to happen is this. And this is a challenge. In order to do a national estuary program, it has to be people-based. In order to be people-based in 5 counties, and as diverse and large as our counties, we have to reach deep into the community. We've already seated a management board. There's 1 or 2 positions left there. But what I wanted to announce today is we are actively engaged right now at the staff level of putting the scientists together. Hopefully, I will have that list back to the council. And we're taking a little different approach this time. We're trying to reach deeper into our scientific community. And so we're looking at all of the institutions, state universities, colleges, nonprofit organizations, private research interests, and each one of those entities will represent all of the people that they have doing research, rather than kind of picking and choosing scientists and maybe not getting the expertise at the table we need. We hope that will be in front of the council in March. And then in March and April, we are actively on the street looking for citizens who want to engage in the Citizens Advisory Council. We have an application. It's a simple 1-page application online. Anybody who wants to serve, we will take that entire list, and I see it almost in 2 components. Stakeholder groups like the Environmental Learning Center, Marine Resources Council, Florida Oceanographic, where they are representative of larger bodies, and then just individual citizens who want to serve. We are going to then bring that to the council sometime in the next several months once we feel like we've reached deep enough, and we will seat what's called the management conference, and all decisions will be made in the sunshine and within that conference structure. So scientists, citizens will work together, make recommendations to the board. That board will make recommendations to the council. So it's my hope that we'll be in pretty constant communication with you all as investors. We're doing a weekly announcement of just what staff's doing because we're running pretty hard. There's only 2 of us. And so we are working very much like a private sector industry, lean and mean, and working as fast as we can to put this in place. But the big lift for the next year and beyond is the Comprehensive Conservation Management Plan. That process, on average, and there's 28 national estuary programs around the nation, takes somewhere between a year to 18 months. And we know from talking to the citizens, talking to our elected officials and the scientists, we simply don't have a year to wait. And so my intent, and I've already vetted this in the January meeting with the council, is that we're going to put, right now I'm calling it a triage plan, but we're going to have a project plan in place that'll go through our process, hopefully by August, so we can enter the legislative session next year with a clear path for projects and some instruction for our legislators and actually for our federal partners as well, that these are the areas that are most important for funding. We took notes during your legislative briefings in all 5 counties. It was about $383 million worth of Indian River Lagoon projects were mentioned during the legislative briefings. Many of those aren't getting funded. In fact, most probably won't, but some of them are really good projects. So we're going to reach back after the session and see where your local projects are and see how we can help you at local government maybe move some of those projects forward. So our current work plan is right around $1.2 million. We get $600,000 a year from EPA. That's a 2015-2016 work plan. We're going to amend that a little bit to drive a few more projects this year, so it'll be a mid-year amendment. And you can see that we've got good representation between counties, restoration, education. This year's RFP went out. We are on a hard deadline, and it was really difficult for us to get ahead of the curve on this. We have got to be at the EPA on June 1 with a full budget and a full management, we call it the plan, the work plan for next year. And I'm pleased to say we are now in front of that curve. We had over $6.6 million worth of projects proposed. We have about $600,000, maybe a little bit more on the table. And so we have way more good projects than we have funding. And so part of our challenge right now, this is going through a peer review process internally. Ultimately, these projects will be reviewed by the council. The council, I'm pretty sure, is going to be leaning pretty hard towards restoration this year. And then that will all be done in the public sector when we review and set up that plan. That will be happening over the next 2 months. We really need to have that work plan in place by probably the May meeting so we can meet the June deadline. And we are partnering for success with a lean, mean IRL council. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And we have brilliant people working for many years on Indian River Lagoon projects throughout the lagoon, great organizations in education, in research, even in coordination. And so we're partnering everywhere we can. The Marine Resources Council is working on a review of the Indian River Lagoon health that will be rolled into a report card, and they're seeking some private funding to do that. We're helping them move that along. Department of Economic Opportunity just entered into a contract with the 2 regional planning councils, East Central Florida, Treasure Coast, to look at economic analysis. And this will be a jobs-related, not a full comprehensive. And so we're partnering on that. And we're also looking at the NERC team. It's a group that I've known for a long time, but most of you have never heard of this group. And they are some of the smartest Northeast restoration scientists who gathered together over the last 3 years to think about best practices. And so now I sit on their steering committee and I said, just tell me, what have you learned? What are you doing right? What are we doing wrong? And let's move that forward. So my goal is to bring this all to a point as we move into next year. And so we are operational, moving forward, project driven, and with some investment considerations that I think probably are the most important for me as the executive director. Successful businesses are built on good culture. Successful businesses are built on transparency, good economic understanding, but working with the best and brightest minds to advance that business. And we are in the business now of Indian River Lagoon restoration. And that is not going to be the IRL Council working alone. It'll be the IRL Council working with you at the city, with the county, with the state, with our federal agency and partners, but also with the citizens, including many citizens and communities that may not have been involved in the past. So for me, the most important list of this, why invest in this newly restructured, is about working together. That for the first time, and I'll tell you, reorganizing national estuary programs doesn't happen very often. There's been a few. And the few that have happened, very often a reorganization is challenging and may not meet the outcomes that you anticipated. I will do everything in my part to make sure that the outcomes we reach are the outcomes that you wanted when you invested in the IRL Council to begin with. And this is what's at risk. It's old data, but we're $3.7 billion for the Indian River Lagoon alone. But the other statistic may be shocking to you. Florida Ocean Alliance in 2013 looked at the ocean and coastal cluster. And I was happy to see our marine folks here. We know how big boating and tourism and beaches and clean water and fishing are. When you put that entire ecosystem together and all of those industry clusters, we're looking at a state economy that is actually over $583 billion a year. I mean, it's as big as anything we work with, but I wouldn't say that we're on anybody's point of mind sometimes when we think about economic development, but we should be. And lastly, this is about we as community. I asked this question my first week, and I was surprised nobody could answer it. I said, how many communities live along the Indian River Lagoon? And I had answers from 25 to actually over 100. The best count I have right now, and I have somebody mapping this, is right around 47 to 50 with a footprint on the lagoon. Each one of those 50 communities is important, whether it's Palm Bay, you all here in Vero Beach, or the small city of Oak Hill and Volusia. So one of my goals is, over the course of this next year, is to see you all personally, invite you to participate, make you at least aware that we are available. We're working for you. I work for you. You're investing in this effort. My goal is to make sure it meets your expectations. So with that, I'll open for questions.
Council?
Are you competing with anybody, or are people joining in with you? I mean, what's the environment for you?
The environment's really good, I think. But the fact is, when you look at, let's say, the nonprofits, all of the nonprofits, there's a little bit of, what I would call, Daytona track rubbing. And, the fact is they're chasing dollars. There's not enough money for programs. And so one of the things that we're going to try to do, and we're getting very good response, our goal is not to compete with local NGOs. Mm-hmm. Our goal is not to compete with the research organizations. I see us more like the choreographer of the dance. How do we get those organizations working together so we get a better return on investment for a public dollar? How do we get the private sector giving to those entities, and maybe we can facilitate those gifts by, putting nonprofits or, Harbor Branch, for example. We were all there for 3 days last week talking science. And so, yes, there's competition. There always is. We want competition because that's what gives us the best and brightest. But our goal is that the NEP isn't the place to compete. Our goal is that safe place where we can have a tough discussion, where agriculture and environment can be in the same room and find solutions to these problems. My background is industry, nonprofit, as well as government. I've done all three during my career. My last 7 months, or actually 7 years, has been in industry, and I've learned a lot in that process. There are no demons in this issue. It's all of us. I mean, all the impacts, it's historical. It's the way we did land use planning. There's no, bad guy in this. We have to figure out how to find that 80% of the solutions we can agree on, move forward, and then where we have really tough discussions, find a safe place to have those discussions, and that's the NEP.
Yep.
And there is no other solution. I've told somebody the other day, they said, what happens if you guys go away? And there is no Indian River Lagoon-wide organization that can do what a national estuary can do if they do it well and if they partner with the local people.
I think you've got there's a very energetic community and a generous community here, and if you can keep us abreast of what's going on and spend time here, I'm sure you'll get a bunch of help. The lagoon is in foremost in a lot of people's minds here, and so it's great that this is happening. Great.
And we appreciate that. And we can use all the help we can get. And so if anybody wants to volunteer, even though we may not take the volunteers, we can steer your citizens to the right organization, depending on what their interest and what their passion is.
There was something that came up in the UT Mission meeting regarding water. Do you remember what it was, Laura? It came up at a utility commission meeting on water that was water use, and we were going to refer it to you. Remember that, Dick? We'll find out what it is and get it to you. I can't
That'll be
remember
great.
What it was. Yeah.
In the meantime, I know you recently had a deadline for receiving projects. Did Vero Beach submit any projects to the IRL?
Yes, ma'am, we did. We submitted 2, but one was without a cover letter, so it was rejected, is my understanding, but we do have one that's very active.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And hold that project for the next round. We are looking for additional funding. And one of the things that we think we can help, I know there was a call, I think it came out yesterday, for 319 grants. I know you've done those grants before. They're stormwater. But it's hard for local government because you have staff that are running in a lot of different directions to track these opportunities for dollars. As we redo our website and get better positioned, our hope is that we can be that portal where, when grants get announced, when money becomes available, that we can get that information to our constituency.
Mr. Free, thank you so much for giving us a copy of your budget. And I guess in looking at this preliminary budget we received, it shows 36% of the budget going to administration costs.
Yeah, that budget was done over a year ago.
Yeah, that for anybody,
And we joked about that when I first came on board. I'm coming out of industry, and I said, gosh, $600,000 for staff? I mean, how many people are we actually going to run with? What was your vision? That was done because at the time that budget was done, there was no money. And so that budget was actually created in advance of the dollars that came in October. So our start date for a fiscal year was October. That is the budget that is currently accepted and approved by the council, and it was a holding budget. So it's a placeholder. And when I first came on board, the first issue was, do you want to redo the budget? And I said, no. Give me 6 months to see where we're at. I will not hire, and I have not hired. I hired a COO, and we've been operating with 2 people, which is, I have to tell you, we have been beyond lean and mean. We're right at the limit of, what 2 people can do in a national estuary program. But we wanted to see where we were, both with revenue and expenditures, make the move. We moved our offices. And so at that March 18th meeting, we will be bringing a true line item, realistic budget to the table for discussion. And I can tell you it's not going to be 37%. That number's going down, we're hiring one more person, and then we're going to hold for as long as we can. We're going to make hires because we have to, not because we want to. I'm going to very much treat what we do with your taxpayer dollars as if we were running an industry, which is where I came from last.
And I mean, the current revenues you show a total of 2.1, 2.2. Of course, $1.5 million of that's coming from membership contributions. How do you expect this budget to increase, or that'll be held, or to handle this enormous need of projects that we have?
It isn't. This budget, I don't see this budget increasing unless we move to a different funding structure. One of the things, when I came on board, the coalition is strong. The intent is strong. Each of you came with, I think, open minds, open hearts that you wanted to do something for the Indian River Lagoon. This budget will allow for small projects. They can be strategic and very valuable, but we're looking at a restoration without considering the needs of Lake Okeechobee. Just, from here north, when you look at stormwater, septic to sewer, muck removal, living shorelines, we're talking about, I'd say well in advance of $1 billion. And so having that comprehensive management plan is absolutely key. And I don't mean a management plan that sits on a shelf. This is a restoration plan. So I envision and hope that in maybe August, September, the conversation we're having is that we know projects that are moving forward. We know where the best science is to drive the best projects for the best return on investment. And then rather than each of the counties bringing kind of projects that come up, that we will vet some of those and move to the state legislature with a substantial request for money that will move the needle, and then leverage that same position at the federal government. But that won't happen unless we are organized, unless we are one voice, and unless we have a strategic plan, which is why that triage plan is going to be important. That I can't wait for that comprehensive management plan, and that has to be done. But in the interim, there's no reason why we can't advance the stuff we know already. And there are some really great opportunities to make change, and I think we need to do that. One of the things that's coming up, and it may be an issue in the city, the septic to sewer issue. When it gets right down to it, a lot of that's about available funding, especially for communities that may not, have the financial capability to, make the reconnect. But there's also some state law, this exemption clause that allows, the state health department, to waive what local government wants to do. So there may be some policy, and in fact there will be policy discussion at the council level to see if there's some policy impediments that need to move forward. There are discussions about Amendment 1 money, and to see where Amendment 1 money might go. And we need to enter that discussion and be at the table with a vision, but not a vision maybe just for the Indian River Lagoon, but we have 7 national estuaries in this state. We have 3 national estuarine reserves and 4 national estuary programs with the EPA. And they're all facing some level of difficulty. Ours is probably the worst shape right now, and Apalachicola is in tough shape. So the key is unified voice, unified community, and a unified vision, and then we'll go up to Tallahassee together, 5 counties, and with the power of the science behind us, and see what we can do.
Greatly appreciate your time and coming up and talking with us. We hope to be in communication with you and watch how this project rolls out. We're
looking forward to working with you. Our office is just up the street.
Just up
we
the road,
moved into the city of Sebastian. We're in the old 1926 school building, and so if you want to stop by, let us know. Of course, looks like a lot of the Marine guys left. If you want to take us for a boat ride, we never say no to a boat ride as well. And I did brief your Marine Commission a week ago, and so anytime you need me to come down with any constituency that's concerned about the lagoon, I'm available.
We're glad
Thank
you're
you.
so close, Dr. DeVries. Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Good evening, Laura Moss, Utilities Commission Member at Large. First, I'll answer Mr. Old's question. I happen to have the paperwork with me from that meeting, so I'll give it to Tammy and she can distribute it to everyone. The project name is the Groveland Reservoir and Stormwater Treatment Area, and that's, I think, to be performed in conjunction with FPL. FPL is involved in that. So I'll give this to Tammy and then everyone can have a copy of it. With regard to my own comments, I would suggest that the Utilities Commission and Finance Commission be involved in the vetting process for whatever group or groups are involved in the future use of the land involving the power plant and the wastewater treatment plant. Since those two commissions have been involved with those properties for such a long period of time, not only the properties themselves, the physicality of it, but also the finances. And I think since, as you know, we're all aware that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I don't think it would hurt to have as much expertise come to bear on it as you possibly can. So I would offer that as a suggestion to have those commissions involved. In addition to that, today I happened to look. I think everyone was pretty happy with the vision plan, as I understand it, from 2005. And that came from what I believe is a private sector company, Gould Evans. And I went to their website today just to be sure they were still in business, before you say anything about them. And what was interesting was on the face page of their website, and this is a direct quote, they said, "How do you create a moment of contact, a moment I'm sorry. How do you create, I can't read my own writing. How do you create a moment of pause for a population in constant transit by developing a distinct destination that encourages connection, and by creating a single point of respite and reflection?" Which I thought was beautiful, and in a way, what we're about to do with this. But at any rate, my other concern this evening, and this is on a different matter, has to do with public comment, and I'll be quick. I hate to see it move to the end. I hate to see public comment moved from number 2 to number 9, which is where it's going, I guess. And you're going to talk about that later, I know, with the resolution. And I understand full well that there have been problems with diatribes, but I think if you stick to the 3-minute rule, because I know, and we talked about this at the last city council meeting, that there's a problem of communication with the public. And if you're putting people at the back, you know very well how long some of these meetings go. And if someone wanted to talk for 3 minutes, you potentially have to wait 2 or 3 hours to make your 3-minute comment. So I think if you stick to that 3-minute rule, I would just love to see you leave it up front. And I probably used my 3 minutes, so thank you very much.
Mayor and Council, do you want us to schedule on the agenda for the Finance and Utility Commission discussion of these partials? We can do that.
Why don't we wait and we have the presentation with the Treasurer
Following
Regional?
that, okay.
Yeah. Mr.
Sue Danino, 5125 Tradewinds. Treasure Coast Planning Council gave the Arts Village a really good price because they're a 501c3. But I wanted to talk on a different subject, and that's the dry run we had a week or so ago with the power outage and the boil water notice. First, I don't think there were very clear instructions on what to do in the event it was real. I noted that some restaurants closed and some didn't. And you got to ask yourself, well, what was going on in the ones that didn't? And I don't know, were they given good guidelines on what to do besides don't drink the water?
Yes, ma'am. They all got the same information. It was a boil cautionary notice. All restaurants obviously chose what route they wanted to go. Now, there are some restaurants, I'm sure, that have filters that would have resolved their issues, and I don't know which ones those were, but everyone was given the same notice, and it was a precautionary boil notice. And it's optional of the individual, whether it's a restaurant or a person.
But let's pretend it was real. Let's pretend we really had a breach.
We can't force people not to open. We don't have
that wasn't where I was going with this. Who's checking for compliance? That's what I wanted to know, because I know good and well that the really good restaurants closed, and they did that because they have a conscience and a clientele they wanted to maintain. But some of the less great restaurants were wide open. They just served bottled water and canned pop. But there's more that happens with water than that. So I'm just wondering, does anybody check compliance?
They were in compliance. It was a precautionary, so they got the option.
I know, but if it was real?
Even if it was real, if it was a boil requirement, then we would check it to our customers. But again, we would go to the customer and, check it. We don't have an option. We could not force them to do something. That was not an option of the city.
This time.
And even if there was something wrong, we can't go into people's houses. We give them the notices.
Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about people's houses, but I'm thinking about daycare centers and restaurants and places that have to use water.
We give them notices. Yes, ma'am.
Notices it. Okay, but so nobody really checks.
Jim, what you're
I'm
saying?
not sure.
You're saying if I own a restaurant and there's a boil of water, not notice but warning, right? So it's a real deal. You can't come to me and say, Harry, you're required to boil your water. City of Vero Beach says by law you have to do it, otherwise you're shut down. And you can't come to me and say, hey, you need to shut your doors. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Department of Health.
Yeah, and the health department comes into
Where
play.
are they?
The city doesn't have a health department.
Yeah, I know who they are. Where are they? Because I can't believe they really function. I'll bet you 50% of the restaurants in this town have cold water in the bathrooms to wash your hands with. The same water that the clients use, the employees are using, and it's cold water. And you can't kill germs with cold water. Can you, Dick?
No, you can't.
You cannot. So I'm just wondering, is anybody watching?
I think as the attorney said, we don't have the health. Our requirements are to put out notices if we have issues. The health department obviously checks restaurants and commercial establishments, so they would be the regulating authority.
I looked online to see what other people used as guidelines for boil water notices, and they were lots more detailed than don't drink the water, use bottled water. I mean, they were lots more detailed than that.
We conform to the state laws the way we put ours out.
Okay.
Because the verbiage on the thing is what is required by state law, and we make sure that we conform, obviously, to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir?
My name is Rusty Capellan. I'm here with the group putting on an event called Ocean Avails on Friday night. We submitted for permits to close down Flamevine from Cardinal to Ocean. I guess in our application, they didn't realize we were serving craft beer and food. We have all of the paperwork, all the insurance, everything. I guess we're just waiting for, maybe asking for a final okay on that, if that's okay.
Okay, you ran by that pretty quick. What's the name of the event?
The Ocean Avails event on Cardinal Drive, between Cardinal and Ocean on Flamevine, in front of the Orchid Island Brewery.
Okay.
And we've got all of our permits, but on the permits it says we're serving craft beer, and we didn't get the okay to serve alcohol in the final permit. So I think they asked me to come up tonight to present and ask for the final approval.
Just as a comment, we did approve the closing of the street. We did not know it was going to be a fundraiser when the application was made, but we now understand that and have no objection to alcohol being served. The one precaution, there are some retail establishments in there that you need to make accommodations for if at all possible.
And we've moved the closing from Cardinal actually inside of the parking lot where the corner building on Flamevine and Cardinal is, so we've moved that in so that their parking lot is still accessible.
So with those accommodations, we have no objection.
Okay. That's where the Polo Deli is?
Correct. Orchid Island Brewery, Polo Grill, Polo Deli, all that stuff.
Portales de Vero, that area. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to need a vote with this, so I'm going to need a motion.
So
I'll make
moved.
a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Capellan, what was that date again?
It's Friday night.
Don't miss that part.
Thanks, sir.
We were sort of pushing the time frame
I
here.
don't want to miss it.
Yeah,
Just a little.
a little tight there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fry?
Good evening. Phyllis Fry, 275 Date Palm Road. Since the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, it was recommended as a consultant for the Art Village project and now for the waterfront property by the Chamber of Commerce. I too question why local firms providing local jobs were such as Kim Lehorn and Associates, or Schulke, Biddle and Stoddard, and others were not suggested for the work or allowed to bid, and you did touch on that. earlier, but competition through private sector is healthy, and we get the best product in the end. The Treasure Coast Regional, when Mr. O'Connor stated in the recent REC meeting that he's not sure we could find anyone else better to handle this process, Mr. Busher, he said, can help the city find grants and other functions and make it all happen. At the same time, Mr. O'Connor said he did not want this to be a government program. With respect, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is, by definition, the big government program funded with taxpayers' money. And I'm certain Mr. Busher will give you everything you want as long as you bend to his wishes, especially when it comes to the new comp plan, rezoning, heights, density, transportation, and his specialty, HUD, housing and transit-oriented development. Wait for it. You have the benefit of my 5 years' experience on this. At the design charrettes, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council told us not to talk about money. You remember they had it on the white chalkboard. Do not talk about money. We were told at this podium that money for the Art Village project would be funded by the Cultural Art Council. In fact, the Art Village will be funded directly from the taxpayer. And as a member of the Taxpayer Association, I would like to know from this council exactly how much out-of-pocket taxes will be used to fund this project. The taxpayer deserves transparency. We were told by this council that the project merely is to, quote, preserve what we already have. Well, there's an amphitheater on the wish list and a sports complex as well, while the city can't even afford to light the Bob Summers ball field at night or provide adequate lifeguard or police staffing. Where are our priorities? I recently attended a presentation at the Riverside Theater where a smorgasbord of grant money was showcased for the Cultural Council. Just take what you want and bill the taxpayer. We spent millions widening the twin pairs. Now we want to spend millions more narrowing to slow down 28,800 vehicles per day. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is re-engineering our town while the taxpayer pays for it, and you rubber stamp the plan. Isn't our own metropolitan planning organization capable of planning our traffic patterns? And by the way, I don't recall if any of you who ran for office campaigned for home rule of law and local decision-making, but I would like to see a candidate consider that in the next election. First topic, 3 minutes. Second topic, 3 minutes. Much less than 3 minutes. In considering the matter of where to place public comment on the city meeting agendas, I thought I would provide options for how other cities and counties address this. In Orlando, for example, public comment is placed at the end of the agenda and the meetings are not televised. However, any item coming up for a vote or that is quasi-judicial will include public comment. In Martin County, they have public comment at the beginning of the meeting as well as at the end, and for those members of the public who were unable to arrive earlier. In the city of Stuart, public comment is open to the public throughout the entire meeting. If an item number is toward the end of the agenda and an attendee has to leave early, they can request to address the item earlier in the meeting. In Sebastian, public comment has been pushed to the end of the agenda. We know from experience that this can lead to a filibuster, as it did when 30 to 40 people from the public were not allowed to speak, about 750 in the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, coincidentally, but were instead forced to wait while the council extended their discussion on coupons from Burger King for senior citizens until the clock ran out. Also, the televising of their meetings is being cut back, which is unfortunate for the public. In summary, I suggest that public comment remain at the beginning of the meetings, and I commend this council on trying to correct some of the video that you're televising our meetings. We really appreciate that, and as always, we thank you for the privilege of public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Fry.
Ms. Wilson?
Rosemary B. Wilson, 1490 Fifth Avenue, Vero Beach. I just want to back and support Councilwoman Turner's suggestion that we use other entities and organizations to do research to see what assistance we can get rather than going through the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, as I see it, gets their funding and is a puppet of the federal government, the Department of Transportation, HUD, and EPA. all taxpayer funded. We need to share this with free enterprise. That's the American way. And I also want to support what Phyllis Fry just said. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Eric Tombstone, 1351 White Heron Lane. Two quick things about the Vero Beach Skate Park and about beach safety. First thing is I'm the project coordinator for the Vero Beach Skate Park Alliance, just to give you an update on what we're doing. We're working closely with Rob Slezak and the City of Vero Beach to obviously ask your permission to build a skate park in the unused or not used very much football field in Leisure Square. We're continuing to do the due diligence. We've done the surveys to the neighbors. Mrs. Turner, Mayor Kramer, Mr. Winger, you guys were there at the open house. We appreciate that. So we've done an open house for the folks. We've put two business plans together, submitted it to the city for tweaking a 10,000 square foot and a 19,000 square foot, and I think you'll see that they at least break even, if not make money for Leisure Square. So that's where we are. I know some folks here from Skate Park Alliance are expecting a vote today, but that's in 2 weeks, so please have patience, and we want to encourage you guys to vote for the skate park. The second thing, beach safety. I don't know if... Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, just a second. So we're going to, Jim, is this going to be on the agenda in 2 weeks?
Right, once we get all the information.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. I don't know if any of you guys had the privilege of going out to the beach today, but it was a beautiful day. Beaches were packed. We have parking issues, of course, and South Beach even. The unfortunate thing, there was almost a tragedy. We got the police dispatch did a great job. They called, about noon, they called Humiston Tower and JC Tower. Apparently there was a 911 call. Two distressed swimmers in the water at Bobby's Hotel, at Vero Beach Hotel and Spa area. So we dispatched a lifeguard from the JC Park, from Humiston Park. Unfortunately, that's equidistant. It's about a mile between towers, so that's a half-mile sprint before you get to the victim. And that's always been our contention, the Vero Beach Lifeguard Association, and that this kind of stuff is going to happen, and unfortunately, tragedy will strike. This time, those folks were able to be pulled out of the water, but just wanted to let you guys know. So if we can't put a lifeguard tower at Sexton Plaza, at least maybe come workshop time, lifeguards could use vehicles to get to those places faster. I think we're all in really great shape. We were 6th in the nation in our last lifeguard championship, so we've got some studs out there. But to run a half mile, you got 20 to 60 seconds to effect a rescue, so it's only a matter of time. So just want to put that out there. We had a wonderful day. Tragedy was avoided, but we don't want that to happen in the future. So come funding time, just remember lifeguards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Somebody left this thing here. I don't know to whom it belongs. I was under the impression that Brian LaPointe, or Dr. Brian LaPointe, was going to be here tonight. Could somebody, that was wrong? I was wrong?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Somehow I thought he was going to. Was he originally scheduled to appear here? Okay. I had my hopes up. Too bad. One of the things I want to know is, and I'm going to put this in writing, and I would like a response in writing, is something about the oil, the fuel oil, that's residual fuel oil. I want to know how many gallons. I want to know how many, when was this purchased. I want to know the purchase price. I want the documents that support the information that's given to me. I think this is important. I want to know tonight, if possible, what obligation do we have to dismantle the power plant? Does anybody know? According to the OUC contract?
We have no obligation to dismantle the power plant.
There's no obligation.
We're under that is correct. We could leave it right like it is,
just
although that's
to make a museum out of it, I would hope. Okay, that's great. I thought there was an obligation that we had. I don't know where I get all my misinformation from, but my dreaming. Okay. It's interesting. There's a few things here I wanted to discuss. Somebody said something about selling the property over someplace to pay the bonds off that we invested in Dodgertown. Did I hear tonight? Because did I hear that we spent $10 million and the property is now appraised for $3 million? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. That's really nice. And I'm not surprised that that goes on. There's a corollary here that I would look forward in the future, that we could possibly sell a $10 million piece of property for one of the good old local boys or somebody else for $3 million. And I wouldn't put it past you, this council, not individually, but as a group. I wouldn't put it past you to do something like that. So that's really nice. Another great investment for the public. As far as the power plant that you're talking about, let me back up. You're talking about the removal of the sewage treatment plant. Is that part of the thing?
That's
okay.
Yeah, here's the
you know what really should. I didn't go to any of these meetings because I didn't know they existed. They were going to happen. But I have a suggestion that you put a fence around the three pieces of property, an 18-foot barbed wired fence to keep everybody out, and then put a big sign there. So this is a monument to the corruption and or incompetence of present and past city council members. And I would say that fence could be put a little irony here and electrify it to keep all the local good old boys, grubby pawed people from even inspecting, get their dreams up. Let them go develop in Newark, New Jersey, or someplace else wherever they came from, or out in Fellsmere. That's pretty much it. I'm sorry that Dr. LaPointe, I wanted to ask him some questions about his research, but I talked to him, just for your information and for the record, I called him several years ago and talked to him twice or three times, and sometime later, a year or so later, I called him again twice or three times, and he never returned my call, so I guess he was too busy. I wanted him to discuss his work, the work that you people based your decision on about the septic systems in the city of Vero Beach. Okay, you guys have a good evening.
I really get offensive when you say that we're involved in corruption as a group here. I mean, I think.
Well, don't take it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You're.
No, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm not sorry for what I said.
I understand. This council goes way out of its way to go with the sunshine laws and protect what we do with the city, and we're a group that is very careful about that. And to be called anything like corrupt is really insulting, and it's far, far, far from the truth.
I don't single anything out, but from my perspective, I call the $10 million down to $3 million deal corruption. It has to be more than incompetence. It's corruption, and I didn't indicate you. I never pointed a finger at you personally, but as a group. And if you're not involved in it, which I don't know if you are or not, I don't know who's doing what behind the closed doors. I know that not everything all of you do is revealed to the public. Is that true?
We go out of our way to reveal everything to the public. We're not allowed to talk to each other.
Is there a list that I can go to find out everyone that each one of you talk to during every day of the week? No, that doesn't exist. Are all your phone calls recorded and subject to the scrutiny of the public? Forget the press.
We go out of our way not to talk to each other. And
I'm not saying that. I said all the other people that you talk to want this, that, or the third thing. And
We
that
do
doesn't
talk to
happen.
other people. There's no question.
And I
about
can
that.
only surmise, and I'm pretty good at it. And I'll cite. I'll leave you guys alone, but I'll cite an incident where I came upon a city employee, and he addressed me by my name. By the way, I'm Joseph Gafanti, and I live in the city of Vero Beach. He addressed me by name, and I said, "How do you know my name?" And he was some kind of a manager, not the city manager. This goes back for a few years. And I said, "This has actually happened. I don't make stuff up." I said, "How do you know my name?" And he said, "Well, I see you at the city council meeting." And I said, "Oh, that." And I'm not going to say what I said, but he said, I said to him, "I just surmise things." I said, I'm not on the inside. And he said to me, and I'm going to pretty much quote him, he says, "You're pretty good." He says, "Actually, it's worse than what you think." And that comes from, that's the truth. And that, I'm not going to mention his name because he's retired now anyway, but you had a drunk down, I'm just citing some things that you had nothing to do with, but you had a drunk running the power plant and his concubine for years. And how could that be? Where's the due diligence? Where's the respect? Where's the respect for the public? I'm sorry, I went over my 3 minutes, and Mayor Kramer, and I appreciate you allowing this extra time, and I don't care where you put the 3 minutes or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hetty? You guys want to take a break after public comment?
Well, council members, with respect to the fence that Mr. Gafanti just mentioned, maybe we could call Donald Trump. I understand he's got some plans together to build some kind of fence or wall or something, and we're going to build one. We might as well build a good one. The comment was that thank you to the council for allowing public comment. That was a privilege. No, it isn't. No, it's not a privilege at all. It's civic duty. You know, that's what it really is. You have the privilege of serving us, and you can't serve us if you don't listen to us. And I think that the first thing you ought to listen to is the boss. And we are the boss, and that's what you should do first, and public comment is exactly where it belongs. Mr. Gafanti couldn't believe his ears about the golf course. That's right. We bought it for $10 million, and then we cut off one of the holes and gave that to Dodger Town, or whatever name they go by nowadays. But in the meantime, remember, I know Pilar remembers this one, we had somebody that was willing to come into the city and open that golf course back up and turn money back over to the city. It wasn't going to cost us anything, but we took a $10 million piece of property, it belongs to the taxpayers, and want to sell it for $3 million. And I tell you, there was some thanks for allowing us the privilege of speaking to you. And as I said, it's not a privilege, it's a civic duty. And if there's any thanks that needs to go out, it's thanks, Phyllis. I sure appreciate it. You know? And it's not the first time that Phyllis has come up to this podium and said, "Hey, by the way, you know, all of what you're talking about is all coming out of our pocket. And this is just a bigger government plan to take more dollars." And we talk about smaller government, and we had another speaker that talked about private, we just wind up keep spending money on all kinds of silly projects, and it's all taxpayer money, and we like to call it other things, grants and whatnot, in the lagoon. I don't know. I don't know of anybody that really wants to see the lagoon polluted. I don't know of anybody that wants to stop any plans to clean up the lagoon. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Who's the biggest polluter of the lagoon? That would be the big government that you were talking about before, Phyllis. That's who the biggest polluter is. How many billion gallons is flowing out right now? Government. I was over at Lake Okeechobee a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting seeing the levels and Levels are now going down, but they aren't going down on the sugar farmers, the big money. They aren't going, the water's not going there. Instead, it goes in to pollute our estuaries, and then we have somebody that comes up and says, hey, look, you know, for a slight tax fee, we're going to coordinate all this, and we're going to clean up the lagoon. And as usual, Councilmember Turner, I'm telling you, you know, I got to tell you that there are times when you sure are a pain in the neck.
Guys, let's just address the council as one whole, please.
I'm addressing the whole council.
Thank you.
I'm talking about your council member, Pilar Turner. Because sometimes a royal pain in the neck, and especially to people who put things before you because you say, thanks for the budget, because I appreciate that. You really are a pain in the neck. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hetty, would you just...
What? I'm thanking Pilar for being such a conscientious public servant.
The way in which you're doing it is not real flattering. I just...
Are you less than flattered, Pilar?
Mr. Hetty, if you
Thank you, Pilar. Once again, I don't know why the mayor is interrupting this, but you do. You do it all the time. You do a great job. And you do look at the numbers. Huh? And you should be thanked for that. And I don't know why the mayor has a problem with that. But the $600,000, too, by the way, for salaries is 2 people. That's it. And no, we're not going to change that budget. No, that budget is just fine, just the way it is. Yeah, that's sure it is. Anyway, you know, we at the very beginning of the meeting, had the people come up and they talked about what they're going to do with the property, what they're going to do with that power plant property and the sewer plant and the annex across the street. And I'll bet you that there's not a whole lot of people in this room or watching that know some of the history behind the annex. And the annex got crashed in the hurricanes, and the insurance paid off, and we had the money to rebuild, which is what our contract was with the post office. But we didn't want to do that at the time because we had a city manager who had a friend down in West Palm Beach, where he came from, and this developer was going to come up. So rather than spend the money to rebuild the annex, which we had an obligation, we had contractual obligations to do. Instead of doing that, what we did was we went with the city manager's developer, who was going to make himself a whole lot of money, and we gave it to him for $1 a year until he decided that, hey, the bottom has fallen out and we can't do this anymore. So he stopped paying his $1 a year, and we wound up with the property back. And then FPL says, oh, good that we can use this property because we can take the substation and we can move it across the street, and then we can clean out that power plant. We'll get rid of that for you, and we'll do the demolition, and we'll do all that. And no, that wasn't good enough either. Instead, what we do is we tell FPL to pound salt, and now we're going to take on the obligation of removing the power plant. The city manager says we don't have to remove it. But if we do remove it, does any council member have any idea what the cost to remove that would be? Anyone? Does anybody have a cost on what it would cost, an estimate on what it would cost to remove that sewer plant, to divert all of that someplace else? Huh? So we don't even have the cost of what this is going to cost us, and we don't know on the power plant how much it'll cost us until we start digging. But we've already got 300 fine citizens in the community that have come forward to put forth their plans on what we should do with taxpayer-owned property. And waterfront restaurant, I like waterfront restaurants. But if I want to invest in one, I don't want it to be in my property tax. If I want to invest in a waterfront restaurant, I really don't need you people deciding who to give this property to, and if those people really want to build a waterfront restaurant, that's fine. That's perfect. Buy some property someplace, including this, I guess. Buy some property, build all the waterfront restaurants you want. Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, I don't know whether Phyllis's memory, I know, is really pretty good. And I don't know whether she'll recall this, but I served on the High-Speed Rail Commission here in the city, and Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council sent a rep here, and their first presentation to us, and it's all matter of public record, their first presentation, they were kind of in favor, like very much in favor, right, of the high-speed rail. And they tried to push that down in our throats until they realized that there's this huge number of people out there that don't want any part of the high-speed rail, and they kind of changed their mind. But they tried to push that one down our throats too. And, you know, and it really is good that we have citizens like Phyllis, like Mr. Gafanti, that keep notes and remember some of this stuff. Anyway, most of that I didn't come to talk about, but I listened to all this stuff that goes on, and I can't help myself sometimes. What I really did want to say is that you work for us, and Mr. Mayor, I understand that you're running for county commission, and that's a bigger government and a bigger group of people. And if you can't control public input at city council, I certainly don't want to see you over on county commission working for a bigger government for more people. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with public input. There's nothing wrong with where public input is, and it's pretty easy to control. And when I was on council, when I was a council member, I didn't have any problem with the people that came to the podium. And generally speaking, we did something that this council doesn't do, is that we answered the questions. And that pretty well resolved it. You don't need to remove it to the end of the meeting. What you need to do is understand what your job is, and your job is to represent us, and you can't represent us if you don't listen to us.
I'm not trying to control the comment. I mean, you are putting...
Yeah, you are. You're moving it to the end because you're trying to control. And then you make up this stuff as you go, oh, I'm not trying to control it. Of course you are.
You're put in front of the council members.
Of course you are.
You're before the council.
In fact, it's your name to move it to the end of the meeting. It's requested by Mayor Jay Kramer. So no, sir, you are the one.
I am the one.
You're the one that's putting it forward.
There is no doubt about that.
And you're forgetting what your job is, and maybe the problem with citizen input at the front of the meeting, maybe the problem is that you are running for a county commission. Maybe you don't want us up here saying things that have an impact.
Mr. Mayor, I raised a point of order. It's not appropriate for him to talk about politics of anything you're running for and
That's
not
what
running
this
for.
is.
It's not
Mr.
appropriate.
Winger.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Winger, this is city
It's not
council. This
appropriate.
is politics.
This is a non-political board. It's within our rules, Mr. Henny.
Oh,
Will our rules say that there will be no political comment?
Because you say something is something, that doesn't make it.
Mr.
You know?
Mayor, I stand with my point of view.
No, you're sitting, actually.
Let's not demonstrate the point. Okay.
Yeah, he's case.
You know, state law says that you have the option to have comment before every action that we take, and I don't have a problem with that. And if we move comment towards the end of the meeting, we can actually be more interactive and have the staff be more interactive without having to wait for all of the audience to finish with what you have to say.
And if you put citizen input at the end of the meeting, then during the course of the meeting, the only things that we can speak to are the things that are on the agenda. And today's meeting was a very good example where people brought things up that were not on the agenda. In fact, you took action and voted on them. Public comment at the beginning of the meeting is exactly where it should be. And it amazes me that this governing body would even, we go through this about every 10 years in this community. I've been through it several times in the 30 years that I've been kicking around here. And it really is pretty amazing to me all the time when it gets to a point where we wind up with council members that think they need to kick us, the public, to the end.
Is there any other members of the public that would like to speak? If not, I would suggest you guys want to go 10 minutes break? Okay. The meeting will convene at 7:52.